Okay, now we're going to learn how to graph tangent and cotangent. Okay, the big deal about tangent and cotangent is that their period is different from all the other graphs we've looked at. Their period is only pi, not 2 pi. It only takes halfway around the circle for it to start repeating its pattern. So that means that when we go to figure out the period for any tangent or cotangent graph, we will be taking pi divided by b instead of 2 pi divided by b. The other really, really big deal is tangent is unlike any other of the other graphs, and it starts at negative pi over 2, not at 0. Everybody else starts at 0. So the pattern for sine, for instance, middle, high, middle, low, middle, we're starting at 0. The pattern for cosine, high, middle, high, we're starting at 0. The pattern for cotangent we're going to learn starts at 0. The pattern for tangent we're going to learn doesn't start at 0. It starts at negative pi over 2. And of course, secant and cosecant start at 0 because they're based on sine and cosine. All right, so real quick, here is here is the tangent graph. Okay. In all of its glory, y is equal to a tangent of bx. We don't see a minus c or d, so that means there's no vertical shift and there's no phase shift. So there is none here. And it's positive, so there's no reflection. None. Okay, now the period is pi over b. B is 1, so it's going to be pi. The spacing is the same as it has been for every other graph. It's the period divided by 4. So this is pi over 4. The value of a here, this does not have an amplitude, but it does have the value of a that we look at. It's 1. All right, so this is what the pattern for tangent. Once we lay this out, this is the pattern. It's going to be asymptote, low, middle, high, asymptote. In the middle, if something's not shifted, is the x-axis. And how high and how low we go is the value of a. So for an unchanged tangent graph, it's going to go down 1, up 1. And so it's going to, it almost looks like a square root, a x cubed graph. It goes like this. All right, so we can see that the value of a could definitely vertically stretch this if a was very large. The value of a could shrink it. If it was like 1/2, it wouldn't go up. It would be more squatty. And that the frequency, the period, if it was changed, would tell us how often it would cycle. So this is the typical tangent graph. A is 1. So we're going to go up 1, down 1. The spacing is pi over 4. So we're going to go pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, pi. Negative pi over 4, negative pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 4, negative pi. Okay, so this is what this looks like. This is the big deal. It does not start at 0. It starts at negative pi over 2. So we go over to negative pi over 2 and we say asymptote, low, middle, high, asymptote, low, middle. And then if we continue to go, high, asymptote. So let's just finish this out. This would be 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, which is 3 pi over 2. And then if we went backwards, we went high, middle, low, asymptote. This will be high, middle. We'll just stop it there. This is how much of the tangent graph we see. We're going to go low, up, up, down. This is what this looks like. So the asymptotes, the vertical asymptotes, which I left off this worksheet, so I'll add them now. Where are they occurring? They are occurring at negative pi over 2, pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. Negative pi over 2, pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. Okay, over here, cotangent. What is the difference in cotangent and tangent other than the fact that cotangent starts at 0 like all the other graphs? Well, its pattern is asymptote, and instead of going low, middle, high, it's high, middle, low, asymptote. So a cotangent graph will look like this. That's the only difference. This is up here at this is at A, and this is at negative A. So cotangent is a reflection of tangent across the y, so it's high, middle, low is the pattern, and it starts at 0. So let's do the period is the same as tangent pi. So pi over b, which is 1, will just give us pi in this case. The value of a right here is 1. There's no reflection because it's positive. There's no phase shift. There's no vertical shift. The spacing is going to be pi over 4. So let's just do this. 1, negative 1, pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, pi. Let's go backwards. 1, 2, 3, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 4, negative pi over 2, negative pi over 4. Okay, the pattern is asymptote, high, middle, low, asymptote. So this starts at 0, so this is 0. High, middle, low, asymptote. And then it'd be low, asymptote. So this is the cotangent graph. So where are his vertical asymptotes? They are occurring at x is negative pi, 0, and pi. That's a cotangent. All right, so now we just have a few graphs to practice on. Here we go. I'm going to do something with the tangent and cotangent that I didn't do with the others, but I find it a very helpful graphing thing to do because tangent doesn't start at 0, it starts at negative pi over 2. So this is something you can do, and for particularly for tangent graphs because they're a little tricky to me. We know that a normal tangent, and you can do this on every single function. You can say, hey, what is a normal period for one of these? And so a normal period for sine, cosine, secant, cosecant is 0 to 2 pi. A normal one for cotangent is 0 to pi. A normal for tangent is negative pi over 2 to 2 over to pi over 2. So you say this is what it normally runs between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. That's how long it takes to cycle. Okay. Because it starts at negative pi over 2 and the period is 1 pi. So it takes that long. Then you take whatever is next to your x, the 2x right there, you put it here. Okay. And then you divide by, you solve for x. We're going to divide everybody by 2, which is negative pi over 4. Pi over 4. What does this tell me? This tells me this, if I start here and stop here, I'll have one clean cycle of this tangent graph. That's what that tells me. And that's very helpful because it kind of gets muddled. What is the value of A? It's 4. It's not reflected because that's positive. Is there a vertical shift? Yes, it's down 3. What is the period? It's it's pi over B. So it's pi over 2. The spacing will be pi over 2 divided by 4. So that's pi over 8 is the spacing. This is how I'm going to mark up my tangent. So, but how do I know where to start? This tells me where to start. And I'll mark up my graph. Negative pi over 8. Negative 2 pi over 8. Let's see. Pi over 8, 2 pi over 8, 3 pi over 8, 4 pi over 8, pi over 2. Pi over 8, 2 pi over 8, 3 pi over 8, 4 pi over 8, 5 pi over 8, 6 pi over 8. Okay, that's what I'm going to stop there. So this tells me to start here. What is the pattern? Asymptote. What's going to happen in here? low, middle, high, asymptote. Okay, now, we are going to shift down 3. So that we're going to go down 1, 2, 3. So this is my new vertical mid, or kind of the midline. Then it's my new x-axis, basically the middle. All right, and so then, this is -3, and then we're going to go up 4 and down 4. So that means we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 to 1. This is going to be the high. And we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 to -7. That's going to be the low. Okay, here we go. Pi over 4. Asymptote. Low. Low is down here at -7. Right here. Middle is at 0. Here. High is at pi over 8 at 1. And then pi over 4 is my next one. This is where I end. And this gives me one clean cycle of my tangent graph. And then I repeat the pattern. So this is low down here at -7. Middle, high up here at 1, and then asymptote. And this little method is very helpful, particularly for tangent graphs. Where were the vertical asymptotes? They were at x is -pi over 4, pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. All right, let's do 4. Another tangent one. All right, the thing about, so what I'm going to do this time is say, oh, tangent is tricky. So I'm going to take all of this mess and put it in between the interval that I know it normally runs. X over 2 minus pi. So I'm going to add pi to everybody. Negative pi over 2 plus pi gives me positive pi over 2. Pi over 2 plus pi gives me 3 pi over 2. Now I'm going to solve for x, so I need to go through and multiply everybody by 2. This tells me where to start the cycle. This tells me where to stop the cycle. This will be an asymptote. This will be an asymptote. And in the middle, we'll have our low, middle, high. The middle is determined by this guy right here. We're shifted down 3 again. Down 1, down 2, down 3. So this is my new midline at -3. Right here. All right. And then how high and low are we going to go? Well, that depends on this value. We're going to go up to, this will be -1. We're going to go down to, this will be -5. That's going to be our high and low. We need our spacing. So let's come over to here. The value of A is 2. It is not reflected. Is there a phase shift? Yes. What is it? Oh, did I not answer the phase shift? How can we find that there was no phase shift there? Is there a phase shift here? Yeah, we could factor out what's next to the x. So 2 tangent of 1/2. If I factor that out, that's going to leave me with x minus, when I divide by 1/2, it's like multiplying by 2. So this means this is being shifted to the right. Right. 2 pi. All right, we're going to shift to the right. 2 pi. The period is pi, because it's tangent, divided by b, divided by 1/2, which is going to be 2 pi. The spacing is going to be 2 pi divided by 4, which is pi over 2. We're going to shift this down 3. All right, the spacing is pi over 2. Let's mark up our axis. Pi over 2, pi 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. Pi over 2, negative pi over 2, negative pi. Negative 3 pi over 2, negative 2 pi. Negative 5 pi over 2, negative 3 pi. Negative 4 pi over 2. Let's see. Negative 5 pi over 2, negative 6 pi over 2, negative 7, negative, this is negative 4 pi. This is negative 3 pi. Okay. We have to start at pi. So start at pi and stop at 3 pi. This is this will give us a good cycle. So if this is pi over 2, it's pi, this is 3 pi over 2, this is 2 pi. We're going to start here. This is going to be my first asymptote. Let me mark this up a little bit more. 5 pi over 2, 3 pi, 5 pi over 2, 3 pi. Okay, ready? Here we go. Start at pi, asymptote. Then we go low. How low? Down to negative 5, negative 5. Middle. High. Up at negative 1. Asymptote at 3 pi. That's what we said to do. So this is one good cycle of my tangent graph. Let's go backwards. We're going this way. It's asymptote, then it's high. High, and then it's middle, and then it's low, and then it's asymptote. First, continue to go backwards. It's going to be high, it's going to be middle, it's going to be low, and it's going to be asymptote. So this, oops, if I could draw this a little bit better, is our tangent graph here. The vertical asymptotes are x equals to negative 3 pi, negative pi, pi, and 3 pi. That's, I can't even read that, for heaven's sakes. Negative 3 pi, negative pi, pi, and 3 pi. That's where our vertical asymptotes are. Okay, so those are the tangent graphs. I'm going to make a separate video for cotangent because I got to take a minute.